So, hello, and welcome to Truth You Can Wake Up To. I'm Samuel William, on the 15th of February 2012. So, this episode is called Hands Off Iran. Who am I talking to? Well, of course, I'm talking to the global elite, those who, whilst the population are distracted by things like the death of Whitney Houston, the British Academy Awards, the Grammys, the African Cup football, or soccer, as it's known. Meanwhile, our leaders are making secret arrangements. Now, don't believe me? Go back and look at some of the revelations that appeared between the oil company BP and Tony Blair and lots of other people before the Iraq War, where they knew they were going in. They knew they were going to divide up the profits, and they were all got together to bid as to who deserved what. Now, the people that they find deserving of oil revenue and rebuilding projects and stuff like that are the people that donate forces, planes, maybe tanks, certainly satellite time, missiles, submarines, aircraft carriers, you name it. If you bring it, you get repaid. So a lot of people somewhere are deciding, of course under Chatham House rules, which is basically secrecy, something criminal. Now, what's a criminal arrangement between two or more people done in secret? You got it. It's a conspiracy. Plain and simple. Now, this isn't a new thing, by the way. Iran being fought over by various people with no regard for how they felt about various things. No. It actually started over 100 years ago in 1908. Now, if you've heard of Carroll Quigley, many of you may have done, he wrote a very enlightening book called The Anglo-American Establishment, where he enlightened us to something called the Rhodes Secret Society, started by Cecil Rhodes, who at that time was in control of a lot of South Africa and their resources, which later became the secret society we know as the Milner Group. Now, in the Milner Group were lots of British leaders, lots of British military, and of course it was the Milner Group that slowly gave birth to things like the Royal Institute of International Affairs and the Council on Foreign Relations. Now, in 1908, the Milner Group was just building up, just setting in. It was the time when Milner was not in political power, so he had lots of time to concentrate on extracurricular activities. And in 1908, a company was born, a very large company. It was called APOC, the Anglo-Persian Oil Company. Now, the Anglo-Asian Oil Company was the first oil company to extract oil from the Middle East, and it went on in the following years to dominate the Iranian oil supply. The British Empire had essentially grabbed it under a treaty, and they then seized the entire oil supply, and of course, crucially, all the profits. Now, this went on from 1908 all the way through to after the Second World War. So all of those British Navy vessels, all of those Spitfires, very boldly going across to Nazi Germany to protect the country. What were they running on? They were running on tyranny. That's right, pure liquid tyranny. Now, I should say at this point, it was called the Anglo-Persian Oil Company because Iran, as we know it today, didn't actually become Iran until 1935. Before that, it was known as Persia. Now, it might be interesting to note here that the Anglo-Persian Oil Company actually became BP, British Petroleum, or Beyond Petroleum, as they like to cunningly and actually rather hysterically call themselves at the moment, with their lovely little green flower. They're so green. Welcome to BP. We're green, don't you know? We're innocent. We've never hurt a living fly. Anyway, BP was formed after that. It was actually after the Second World War that Iran actually had its first democratically elected government, elected by the people, and the people made a demand. The demand was that APOC, the Anglo-Persian Oil Company, should fuck off. That's right. But, of course, the British did not like that idea very much. No, they did not like it in the slightest, old boy. So, what they did is that they caused a global boycott of Iranian oil to pressurize the Iranian economy and try and make them give in. Sounds a little bit familiar, doesn't it? Now, Iran did not give in, and this is one of the things that most of you will learn from Iran with what's going on now, is that they do not give in. They're a very, very strong, very, very proud country. Now, there's an old adage, isn't there, that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Now, I think those in the truth movement, we should really, 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 really be supporting Iran. It is as simple as that. I would say probably the most high-profile person to ever mention 9/11 truth to the world was the leader of Iran. He also said that the UN is corrupt and should be shut down, pretty much. And amen to that, because I think there's a lot of us out there that believe that. Now, so if your enemy is the global elite, and the global elite's enemy is Iran, then Iran is our friend. It's as simple as that. Some of the news articles that are out there, this propaganda that is for those of you who know how to see it, know how to spot it, know how to read it and how to interpret it, these are pure and simple propaganda and part of a military psychological operation. And if you don't believe me at this point, you think I'm a nutcase. Psychological operations in the news, then go and read Propaganda by Edward Bernays on how to scientifically engineer consent. If you look at these articles on the net, if you go to Telegraph on the net, or you go to The Times, look at the comments. My, oh my. The kind of bigotry, the kind of hatred. Now, when are we going to learn that the enemy is in our own countries? It's our own government. We need to know who the enemy is. And it's the corporations that collude with the government. They own the media. They tell us what to think, what to buy, and who to hate. And at the moment, they're telling us to hate Iran. And it's very, very shocking and dismaying at how many people are buying into it. And just some of the stuff on comment sections on some of these articles, my, oh my, is all I can really say. So, the Iranians wanted their oil back. This was in the very, very early 1950s. And the British didn't like that very much, so they started a worldwide boycott on Iranian oil. But the Iranians did not give in. As I said, they're very, very strong people, and they had, and still have, a very, very strong leadership. So what did the British do? Well, it's actually very well and openly documented that a military coup was formed by the US and the UK intelligence services. They hired thugs from the streets of Iran, in fact some of the nastiest thugs they could possibly find. They bribed them. They bribed clergymen. They bribed politicians, military personnel, to turn against the government and form a military coup, which worked out particularly well. So just to recap there, the British stole the oil, the Iranians wanted it back, the Iranians said no, so the British hired thugs to cause riots, who then seized the democratically elected leader of Iran, and then he was charged for treason. Now try and get your head around that. He was tried for treason, and they had a military dictatorship. Now this is when the Iranian Secret Service started, and forgive me if I say this wrong, it's SOVAK. They were trained by the CIA. the CIA came in and they trained them. They sent one of their best guys, and then when he'd finished, they sent 5 of their best guys, and they trained them, and they trained them. It's good to note here that this is the beginning of a very brutal era in Iranian history. Some very nasty, nasty things happened here, involving torture and killing and unlawful arrest and detention without trial. All the sort of things that we're starting to learn Western countries are doing now was happening there, because they learnt from the best, from the CIA. Now, specifically, the CIA taught them Nazi torture techniques. And you can actually read on the Wikipedia article about SAVAK, which I believe is SAVAK. They'll list out all of the very nasty things they used to do to people. It is really hard to read. But as I said, they learnt it from the best. In 1979, it was the Iranian Revolution. And that led to the leadership that more or less we have today. And they say Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. Is that true? I'm not sure if they're particularly dangerous. Although they do say things are most dangerous when they are threatened. Perhaps if we stop threatening them, they won't be dangerous. Now, as far as I'm aware, looking back at history, the most dangerous people with nuclear weapons is the American military, because they're the only ones crazy enough to actually use one, or two. I think it's a very good argument, which I'm sure people have repeated again and again. Nobody should have nuclear weapons. That maybe the people that had used them should be the ones that should give them up. Or really, nobody should have them. Or really, everyone should have them. Do we believe in freedom? Do we believe in fairness? Or do we believe that some people are better than others and are more evolved? Because it seems as if that is what's going on. This is a eugenics argument. It's not about nuclear weapons. It's about who's better. And I do not agree. And the vast majority of people do not agree. Because it also means that they're better than you and I. Which means we have less rights. And I do not accept that. A very interesting document you can read. It's from the Brookings Institution. It's called Which Way to Persia, or something like that. A strategy towards Iran. And the Brookings Institute, I mentioned in my last episode, Washington's oldest think tank for things like foreign policy. And they spell out in very, very simple detail the different strategies that can be used. The first one is persuasion, where they use economic sanctions. They get worse and worse and worse until Iran gives in. Or they can cause a military dictatorship. Oh, I wonder where they got that idea from. Or they can support an insurgent group. Ooh. Or they could support a popular revolution. Ooh. Or they could persuade Israel to strike them instead. Ooh. Or, and quite worryingly, especially if you've read the Project for a New American Century, there's this sentence in that document. So brace yourselves for this. I quote, "What American president could refrain from an invasion after the Iranians had just killed several thousand American civilians in an attack in the United States itself?" And the whole document basically is saying, we could use this strategy, but that wouldn't really work. In fact, we're already using it in Syria. Oh, we could use this one, but that wouldn't really work because we've already used that in Libya. We could use this one here, which is really actually quite good, but we've already used that in Egypt. So what should we do? We really just need... We can't get the Iranians to agree to anything. We need something where the Iranians just don't really matter. What about full-on invasion with airstrikes and tanks on the ground and cruise missiles? How about that? Well, I don't think anyone would really go for it. Well, they would if lots of Americans were killed on American soil, wouldn't they? Wouldn't they? Most probably, sadly, they would. I'll put a link up for this document at the bottom of this page. I'm a little bit grumpy today, aren't I? A little bit grumpy. It's just a rather concerning issue. Anyway, click on the bottom of this video, S. Williamism, if you want to go to my YouTube channel. Other than that, you can press subscribe, and that'd be nice, or maybe that nice thumbs up. That makes the searches a little bit better, so other people can find it. But until next time, I've been Samuel William, and this has been Truth You Can Wake Up To.